On your Thursday episode of Locked On Raptors, the Toronto Raptors put on a masterclass of defense against the Sacramento Kings, taking down one of the best offensive teams in the entire NBA, holding them to a season low. We'll dig into how they did it and plenty of other key news and notes. We've got Scottie Barnes and Fred VanVleet finding chemistry, Precious Achiuwa just doing all sorts of crazy stuff, and we're going to talk about it all with Jamar Hinds today on Locked On Raptors. Thanks so much for hanging.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 1328 of Locked On Raptors for Thursday, January the 26th. I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 9 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Twitter at WoodleySean. You can follow, support, subscribe, follow, rate, review, all that good stuff to all of your favorite audio feeds on your favorite podcast apps. And of course, we're on YouTube. You can go hit the big fat red subscribe button. You can't miss it if you go to the Locked On Raptors YouTube channel. Support it there. It's so appreciated when you do that. And join our little Locked On Raptors family over here on all the various platforms on which you can find the show. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. All right, on today's show, coming off a banger, 113-95, the Raptors take down the Sacramento Kings to open up their 7-game Western road trip. The Kings came into this game one of the best offenses in the league, the best offense in the league, I think, since the start of the month. They have been on a heater, and the Raptors just completely flummoxed their asses, and we're going to dig into that today with Jamar Hinds. We got the good, the bad, and the coming up later on. I want to talk about Scottie Barnes and Fred VanVleet and why that duo does actually work together. But first, Jamar Hinds, Raptors Republic. How's it going, my man?
I'm pretty good. I'm back here with Bengals attire, like I promised last time. If they were still, in the playoffs, I was going to do that, and they're still here. And I expect them to be in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, and I'm going to do it again. I don't mean like I don't have much else attire as a 80 Dalton jersey that I terribly need an upgrade on or something, but it is what it is, and it's ruled the jungle until it's not.
Hell yeah. We are not going to talk about the Bengals on today's show, but if they're in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks' time, I will give you a full 4-minute Bengals section of the show just for you to go off and have a good time with it. But for now, we're going to talk about a really fun win, maybe the best win of the season. I think, maybe inarguably the best season, considering the Kings were at full health, the Kings were red hot coming in, and the Raptors, just completely neutered one of the best offenses in the NBA. Jamar, I'm curious, sort of your big takeaways on the way the Raptors play defense in this game. Were there any particular standouts to you? What were your thoughts on the way the Raptors executed their scheme? We haven't seen them do it very much this season, but I think this was probably the best start to finish defensive performance they've had all season long when it comes to sticking to their scheme and letting it work for them.
Yeah, the Kings actually do have the best offense in the league. I don't know if they still have it today after that game, but over the last...
They still do, correct. I thought it was the Nuggets, my bad. The Kings, really good on offense.
Yeah, they just surpassed the Celtics and Nuggets not too long ago. But over the last 8 games or so, the Kings have been averaging almost 130 points a game. So it's 10 more than their 120 average, and the Raptors held them to 95. Not exactly sure what Nick Nurse showed them in that video session, but when you talk about possessions that standed out, for me, it was literally the very first possession of the game. OG had a great closeout in the corner and then goes over to guards Sabonis and blocks him. And it was his closeout where I just saw an intensity difference that I hadn't seen in a little while. And so that basically set the tone of the game for both the Raptors defense and Sabonis, because Sabonis had 9 points and 9 turnovers. It's never a good ratio. He had double turnovers to assists. So, and doesn't do well with double teams. He is a guy who ripped the Raptors the first game, although he had 5 turnovers in that game too. But he had a 20-20 game in that game, and he hurt the Raptors on the glass. He was a big part of hurting the Raptors from 3, just finding guys. I remember the Kings outshot the Raptors from three, 17 makes to 6, which is
Yep.
crazy. I think this game it was only 13-12. I want to say. I think it was only
Yep.
1-3 difference. So the shooters weren't there. Remember, this was a Sacramento team that started a game against the Grizzlies a few days ago, making their first 10 threes. They had
Yeah.
12 in the first quarter alone, and they only had 13 in this entire game. But yeah, as the game went on, especially in the second half, Sabonis was just getting swarmed. He went on a major turnover streak. The Kings had 19 turnovers in total. But yeah, this was some of the best defense the Raptors have played all year, and it propelled their offense as they tend to do. And even Mike Brown gave the Raptors a lot of credit. It's always
Mhm.
nice to see the opposing coach give your team a lot of credit. But yeah, he said that basically, they normally prioritize the possession game, and the
Mhm.
Raptors had way more shots than the Kings did. I think they had
24 more shots.
24 more shots. And you're not going to win a lot of games when, a team has 24 more shots than you. But yeah, he basically straight up said that, the Raptors kicked their ass in multiple facets of the game. And
Mhm.
defensively, they were all over the place and nobody really got in a rhythm. I remember another possession. I want to say it was the third quarter. Maybe it was the fourth. I don't remember. But
I mean, the third quarter on its own could just be like its own
yeah,
podcast because
that
that
was a
was
masterclass.
incredible.
But I remember a specific possession in the second half where the previous game, De'Aaron Fox was getting into the paint
Mhm.
and either scoring or finding somebody, and he was basically stonewalled. He couldn't get in the paint. He had to take a contested mid range. Ended up being an air ball. The Raptors. I want to say Fred hit a three the other game. The other way.
Mhm.
Put the lead to 18, and that was kind of just how things were going the entire game. It was one of those complete efforts that we haven't seen a lot of, especially defensively. We all
Mhm.
know the defensive struggles over, especially the last month or so, where they've been pretty bottom tier defensively. So, you hope that they can sustain this. It's not just a one off, but yeah, whatever they were showing in that video session, it really seemed to spark the team.
Nick Nurse sure does love to, talk about how good those video sessions are, right? Like
Right. It's
that,
not the
yeah.
first time this season. So yeah.
It's like all we had to do was just listen to me, and of course everything went perfectly. But I mean, it's hard to argue with the results, right? I think this isn't a unique point. I do think the Kings, their offense in particular, is sort of conducive to getting messed up by what the Raptors do, just because the Raptors are all about length, getting in passing lanes, and clogging up the areas in which they tend to work from. You run Sabonis from the elbow or the deep post. That's where the Raptors can really kind of use their length to their advantage. It's when you kind of run high pick and roll and you're forced to make decisions in how you're guarding it. There's more space to account for that the Raptors can kind of get off the rope, as it were, a little bit, and they kind of their rotations fall behind. Not so much the case in this game. Yeah, there were still some corner threes left open. Kevin Huerter had himself a really good game, but I think for the most part, the way they just bothered Sabonis, I'm not terribly surprised because they tend to do pretty well against passing bigs, right? Nikola Jokic in the past has been someone they've even had success with, just with their length and the way they bother him. So I think it was just top to bottom. Everything the Raptors want to do philosophically, they executed in this game. And look, the problem is it's hard to do it over the course of 82 games. And I don't think that this game suggests that their defensive system is foolproof, but I do think it suggests that there is something there, and if it can be a part of their game plan, a wrinkle that they throw at teams, something they can go to for half of games as opposed to all of games, I think there is reason to kind of believe it in the way they play defense. The argument has never been what it looks like at its best. It's just how easy and sustainable is it to get to the best as often as you can. I do want to shout out a couple of guys in particular. I feel like everybody kind of pulled their weight defensively in this one. But my God, Pascal Siakam, Jamar, was just everything on the defensive end. That third quarter, he made just so many highlight, and he's known for this, right? Like the super duper highlight defensive plays that kind of stand out against the backdrop. A couple of help side blocks at the rim, just kind of being there as a presence around the bucket. Just, man, what were your thoughts on Siakam's defensive game? Obviously, he was excellent offensively too, 26, 11, and 7, making Keegan Murray wish he were back at Iowa. Iowa? Is that where he played? Who's to say? But either way, thoughts on Siakam's defensive game? Because I thought he was a particular standout among a whole bunch. I mean, Precious Achiuwa was incredible. I thought Fred had himself one of his better defensive games, especially as a help off-ball guy. Scottie was killing the rotation game. Boucher was blocking everything, but I thought Siakam was kind of the star defensively for me.
Yeah, and that third quarter that we mentioned before, that everything was on full display, and that's kind of how the Raptors pulled ahead of this game. But yeah, he had that quarter alone. He had a couple of blocks, as you said, and then he had thrown a couple of steals as well. And yeah, that was the prototypical game. Nurse is going to go back to. He doesn't have to show tape from last season now. He could show tape from this particular game anytime the Raptors fall off defensively. It's like, okay, this is what we're supposed to do. But yeah, Pascal was probably the best defender on the Raptors last night. And yeah, I don't have much else to say.
For sure. We're going to continue on. We're going to get into some other highlights from the game. I want to talk about Fred VanVleet and Fred VanVleet and Scottie Barnes and their chemistry and the way things are kind of moving along there. We'll get to the good, the bad, and the at the end of the show as well. Before we do that, however, got to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the NFL and of Locked On. And they are, of course, the #1 sportsbook in America, which is why we're so excited to have them on board with us. If you're new to FanDuel, that's even better because they have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers join today and can get $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first bet of $5. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. Like I've said, when I am going to dabble in a little sports betting, it's usually because I'm at the game and want to enhance the live experience. What better way to get that same game parlay going while you're in the house watching the Raptors or whatever other team you're watching? It's a really fun thing. It's all in an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. So, football fans, basketball fans, hockey fans, the like, place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's continue on here with your first listen of the day, digging again into a thrilling Raptors late night win, making it worth the coffee I had at 8:30 p.m. that left me buzzing into the wee hours of the morning with the win they pulled off against the Kings last night. I want to talk about Scottie Barnes and Fred VanVleet and that duo, if you will. Jamar, there's been a lot made this season about, how Fred VanVleet doesn't pass to Scottie enough. Those two guys don't complement one another. I don't get it, frankly. I've never really understood that. I think the idea of having a catch-and-shooting point guard working off of Scottie Barnes has always been pretty attractive to me. And I think over the last month, we're starting to see that come to fruition. And I do think Scottie's sort of renaissance as a center has been a big part of that. He's just an easy target on the short roll, on the regular roll, going up to the rim, whatever it might be for Fred VanVleet to hit. And the numbers are bearing out that that chemistry is coming along. Over the course of the last 25 days, since January the 1st, Fred's assisting on 2.1 Scottie buckets per game. The season average is about 1, so it's totally inflated what was going on earlier in the season. And I think things are really working right now with Scottie playing as that nominal 5. We'll talk about Scottie playing at point guard as well later on, because that's bloody impressive too. He did it all in this one, but as we get towards the deadline here, which every game is going to inform the deadline in some way, you would think. There's still an information gathering mode. It doesn't seem like they're in any rush to make a call on what they're going to do with this team before February the 9th. Every bit of data is helpful, and I just feel like every little bit of a glimpse of Scottie Barnes and Fred VanVleet working with one another, with Pascal Siakam obviously in there too. I have no doubts about the way Pascal and Fred work or the way Pascal and Scottie work as a duo. It's that Fred-Scottie duo that I think has been this sort of point of contention for people. I just think it works. And, it's not always perfect. Sometimes Fred can dribble a lot and Scottie will stand there, be like, hey, give me the ball. Sometimes Scottie can go and rogue a little bit and not sort of play within the flow of the offense. I don't think it's on one person necessarily, but I just feel like as you're thinking about what this team is going to look like in the future, Fred VanVleet playing the way he has of late, at a rough shooting night last night, but an incredible defensive game. That's really encouraging considering where he's been at on that end this season. I don't know. I just feel like a trio of Fred, Pascal, and Scottie can really work. And the way Fred complements those two, as much as he struggled this season, when he's at his best, which he has been over the course of the last month, it is a really good partnership with both of those guys who are the core tenets of your franchise. And I just think last night was a really good example of that. Just the way Scottie works in the middle. Obviously, neither of those two guys were the offensive stars for the Raptors in this one, but this was an observation I picked up on throughout the game. And I just think, Scottie getting those passes from Fred, being able to survey the floor early in the game, hits Pascal for a corner three, is sort of carving up the team from the middle of the floor, the Kings defense from the middle of the floor the whole night. What are your thoughts on the way that duo's working, how it can work going forward? There's lots of fit questions on this team. I just don't know if this is one of them.
Well, as long as Scottie doesn't toss his mouth guard when he doesn't get the ball, like you saw Steph did yesterday, I think we'll be all right. But no, in all seriousness, I think you nailed it when you said, since Scottie's been playing more of a center role, there's been a lot of rolling for Scottie, and Fred has been finding him. I can't remember exactly which game it was, but that was a major emphasis in one of the Raptors wins earlier.
The Portland game, if I recall, was a big one for that.
I want to say it's the Portland game, but yeah, ever since Scottie's been, as the season's gone along, Scottie's played, some different roles. A lot earlier in the season, he was on the perimeter a lot more, and he was taking more threes. And there is a point in the season where Scottie was encouraged to take like 5 threes a game, but it's not completely necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So around those times when he's on the perimeter, there is kind of really no way for Fred to give him the ball and, in an effective type of way outside of just swinging it. And just look at the Scottie. He's only like a 30% 3-point shooter at best. So it's not like your best type of offense, but specifically since they started featuring him as a big and having him roll to the rim, it's been a thing that's really worked. And Fred's talked about this for a while now, how, he kind of wishes he had a guy that he could, do a 1-5 pick and roll and do some rolling with. You've seen him do it with Koloko a little bit from time to time this season.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, putting Scottie in that position has really worked. The short roll stuff has really worked. I do think it's the Portland game now because the short roll, Nurkic was playing drop, and then that opened up a lot of offense for Scottie to even shoot like one of those little floaters or, get all the way to the rim. So yeah, it was the Portland game. Good call on that. But yeah, it's worked more and more as the season's gone along. And that's honestly Scottie's best role on the team. I think that those are where his numbers are the highest. And then, when Scottie's rolling, it's not just for him to score. He's a willing passer to find anybody else who's, breaks open from 3, if there's help or, a cutter. I know the Raptors should cut more than they do, but I know they should cut more than what they do, but okay.
Wancho's like, I'm here. I do it.
Wancho does it. We need more people to emulate what Wancho does in terms of cutting. There isn't enough of that. But yeah, there's definitely been more Fred Scottie offensive chemistry than there was, say 2 months ago.
For sure. And I think the way, if you're someone who's like, well, you got to get Scottie on ball reps, the way you do that is what we saw last night, what we've seen in a lot of games recently, where Scottie Barnes becomes your de facto point guard for your bench lineups. And that worked once again. They've had a lot of success with that. They did against the Knicks. They did against the Kings last night as well. And the start of those fourth quarters, man, it's maddening how little this team seems to need from their transitional lineups to just be good over 48 minutes. But it really might be a thing here where Scottie running with those groups, whether it's with OG, whether it's with Gary, they brought Gary in yesterday in the back part of the fourth quarter, just, to, I think, offer a little bit more shooting life into that lineup as opposed to what OG's doing. I got some thoughts on OG coming up in just a sec, by the way, but I just think, that's a way. It's 48 minutes over a game. Like, you can get all of these guys their pockets where they get to kind of go and cook. And we know what this team can look like late in games when they are on the string, when they are just playing within the flow of the offense. Again, they're 22 and 27. A lot of these things need to repeat themselves a whole lot of times for anyone to feel confident that this is something that's going to carry forward here. But you're looking for things that can be the sort of grappling hooks that you use to climb out of the hole you're in. And I think Scottie running with these bench lineups, you get him those on-ball reps, so maybe he's satisfied with those. You also have him as your sort of nominal 5 with your regular lineups. And by the way, Scottie yesterday against Domantas Sabonis, who is 6'11", did not look overmatched or, frankly, smaller than Domantas. Is he just 6'11"? I don't know. Maybe I'm a Scottie Barnes height truther, who's to say, but I just feel like those Scottie lineups might be an actual avenue here to keeping Pascal's minutes down. Pascal played 34 minutes last night. He got to rest 8 minutes before the halfway point of the second quarter. That's because Scottie's been able to run with these groups and make them work. Yeah. And, with Precious doing what he's doing in those lineups as well, we're going to talk about Precious too. It's really, really interesting to me, these groups. I pulled up here the 4-man trio of Scottie, Juancho, Boucher, and Achiuwa. It's played 57 possessions together. It's not a ton, but they are a plus 8.4 per 100 possessions over that time. Again, teensy sample, barely matters at all, but that's encouraging. The offense is humming along incredibly well. 130 points per 100 possessions. The defense not quite as good, but I think the defense there is maybe the thing with the most upside, depending on who that fifth guy is with that group. It's just, they seem to have found something there, and that seems to maybe allow everybody their own little pockets of the game with which they get to play with the ball in their hands. And this is the difficulty of being an NBA coach. It's a difficulty of rotations, managing personalities, managing, different guys' agendas and things they want to do with their time on the floor. And I feel like maybe, just maybe, we're starting to get to some sort of balance and equilibrium with the way the team is playing and the way the guys are getting their own little pockets within which to go and cook. And man, for Scottie, just a cool ass line. 7 points, 6 boards, 10 assists, 1 turnover, by the way. Really fun game from Scottie. And I think there's a lot to believe in there, I think, as far as his relationship on the floor with Fred and Pascal and the things he can kind of do on his own as well. Maybe best of both worlds there.
That's kind of a Draymond line.
Yeah, truly. That's the impact he can have, except he can actually look at the basket and score whenever he wants. He's not the shooter that maybe prime Draymond was. And no one is Draymond Green. He's not Draymond Green defensively. That's for damn sure. But as far as the impact on the offense, get Scottie Barnes in the middle of the floor making decisions off of a Fred VanVleet pass or a Pascal Siakam pass. And I think you are in very good shape. And I think we also saw last night too, they were smart when the Kings started trapping Fred at the top of the pick and roll. He was having trouble sort of getting through those doubles with the length, and all of a sudden, all right, we'll just have Pascal or Scottie handle the ball, and that wasn't a problem anymore. Right. It's nice to have options. It's having more than one player who can dribble, a good thing, as it turns out. Just because they overlap sometimes doesn't mean you just go ship one of them off. Where are you at on the Fred thing, Jamar? I feel like I asked this to everybody who's on the show, their various thoughts on various guys being traded. But for Fred, I feel like maybe the last month has calmed the waters a little bit. Maybe there's a little less worry about what his next deal might look like. Where are you at with the idea of moving him before the deadline or not?
I don't know what to think between Fred and Gary, because those two seem to be the highest commodities to be traded, considering their contract situations. I mean, to me, it could still go either way. I think Fred is a guy that is probably, if anybody's going to get traded at the deadline, and this is not something I want, because I think Trent is a guy that we could really use in terms of a guy that can create his own shot and, shoot from the perimeter and stuff. But if I were just to take a wild guess, I would say that they're more likely to trade Gary Trent at the deadline than to trade Fred, which again, I wouldn't want. But in terms of Fred and how long he would be here and stuff like that. It's really anyone's guess. If they were to trade Fred, I would really want to see what they would get back and who would be, running the point. But yeah, it's so hard to tell because rumors have been flying. He's changing agents. So
yeah,
it's really hard to tell. What do I specifically want? I don't even know. So
the 2022-23 Toronto Raptors in a sentence.
I'm just kind of going with the flow here. I don't know what the I don't know what the hell to expect.
That's fair. I think let's screw it. I don't think they should trade Fred. I think he's a guy who's really good. And yeah, the start of this season was just discouraging and concerning. And maybe the back end of whatever his next deal is will start to look a little iffy. But he's really good. And he's played like Fred VanVleet for the last month. And the way he complements Pascal and Scottie, I think, is underrated and very important. And just because he's not the best version of his type of player in the NBA doesn't mean you don't need that type of player on your team. We'll get into some other trade stuff, I'm sure, in the next segment, and some thoughts on, again, the fit and the weird overlap of skills and how it's all played out. We'll get to that in just 1 second. Before we do that, however, just a reminder, Locked On Leafs is your daily Toronto Maple Leafs podcast of Locked On, hosted by Mike DiStefano and Dave Morisuti. They do a great job breaking it all down for you. They won again last night. The Buds are good, and Locked On Leafs also extremely good. So go check them out wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. All right, we've reached the good, the bad, and the way we round out every single Raptors recap of a game that took place the day prior. A good thing from the game, a thing we didn't like, and a thing that's got us a little bit intrigued. Let's start with the good, shall we? Jamar, what was your good from this game against the Kings, other than, the easy answer, which is all of it?
Yeah, there was a ton of good, obviously, and when we were talking about Pascal earlier, this isn't my good, it's just something noteworthy that I forgot to mention that when we were talking about Pascal's defense, I forgot to mention that in an 18-point game with under 2 minutes left, he's still diving on the court for a loose ball. So, that just told you everything about the intensity the Raptors were playing yesterday. But in terms of my good, I will give it to the bench combo of Precious and Chris Boucher, which we haven't really talked about too much in this pod so far. But yeah, Boucher killed it in the second quarter. He made a couple of threes. We all know that's been a struggle this season. He had a couple of blocks. He was one of the guys that was propelling the Raptors offense just simply by being a presence defensively. And then Precious really took over in the fourth quarter and for a stretch there. He's just straight line drives. Get into the rim, finishing. I'm pretty sure Precious made a three in that stretch as well. But yeah, Raptors only played 8 guys, and Mike Brown mentioned that afterwards. Oh, welcome to our Raptors basketball, Mike Brown. But yeah,
are you new here?
But yeah, he said two of the 3 guys we just had absolutely no answer for. And Precious said after the game that there hasn't been a lot of games this season where, first of all, he's used to Boucher, and he says that they have a good chemistry together, which they do. And he said that there hasn't been many games this season where they've both gone off together. Big part because of Precious' long time off the court because of his injury. But yeah, it was really nice to see them go off each other and take turns kind of dominating the Kings. Where those bench minutes were crucial. And that allowed a guy like Pascal to play only 34 minutes. Because that fourth quarter, he pretty much he was able to sit half the quarter, and the Raptors didn't really falter all that much. So yeah, Precious and Chris Boucher, you guys get my good.
Yeah, again, it's gonna take a few more efforts from the deep bench guys, or just the regular bench guys, for me to buy into the bench being fixed or whatever. But this is what Chris Boucher was last year, right? Just this completely disruptive sort of just like screwball of a player. You throw him in and it's just like, what the hell do you do with this guy? He's crashing the offensive glass. He's blocking threes. He's getting help blocks at the rim. He's really effective when he's on, and he hasn't been on enough this season, and that's been a big part of the Raptors bench struggles. On the Precious side of things, maybe he's just on all the time. He has been just a thrill to watch, and I get like butterflies in my stomach every time he touches the ball these days because I'm just like, something cool is going to happen here. Something bad might happen, but more often than not these days, it is something very cool, whether it's a dunk or something I'm going to get to in my coming up in just a second here that's Precious related. But man, that guy, the finishes for him, just kind of soaring through the air, through contact. He's so freaking strong. He doesn't get knocked off of his position in the air somehow. Like, he just kind of cuts through guys like a hot knife through butter in midair. He's like such an impressive athlete. I put this out last night. He might be the best athlete the Raptors have had on their roster since Jamario Moon. And like, maybe that's even overselling Jamario Moon. Like, he's incredible, man. Like, I'm having a great time watching Precious. I'm fully Precious pilled, and last night, hopefully a lot more people got Precious pilled along the way because that dude is the real deal. Let's get to the bad, shall we? I will go first here. I don't even know if this is a bad. It's more just it feels a little uncomfortable. It's OG Anunoby's role definition. It's tough. There's a lot of guys who like to shoot on this team, and I think our pal Assad Alvi over from Yahoo has made the point that, like, the guys they have on the team are almost too good to be the role players they need them to be, and I think OG is kind of indicative of that. I think OG is incredible when he's just bombing, catch and shoot threes, getting steals and scoring on the run, cutting and scoring under the bucket, sort of doing role player stuff. He does it at a really high level. He's had, seasons of 60-ish true shooting kind of in that role player, play finisher, opportunistic scorer role. I think it's just, I've made the comment before, it kind of feels sometimes like his shooting is rushed. I don't think that's quite the situation that we've seen lately. I think if we've just seen like, it's hard for everybody to do all the things that they want to do. And I do kind of find that in the moments where the Raptors offense is looking good, the times at which it's most likely to kind of get stuck is when it swings to OG, because it kind of feels like he's in the process of deciding, all right, is this my time to go and get my own? Am I just going to bomb a three? Am I going to, shuffle it along to the next guy? And I'm sure OG will figure it out given enough time. But I do wonder if just like the fit is something worth examining. And we've talked all week long about the potential of an OG trade and why I think maybe that is the move if you're going to do something before the deadline, just because of the enormous haul you could in theory get back to sort of rebalance the roster. And to the point of Precious, I wonder if Precious is good enough if he's starting to make it so you can kind of overcome the loss of OG's defense if he were to trade him. It's not like it could totally blow up in their faces for sure and be something they regret for a very long time. But, and I'm totally fine if they do nothing as well, right? I'll go with the flow, do whatever, they see fit, whatever. But the idea of an OG deal becomes more and more interesting to me every single time I see him just kind of feel like a little bit lost in the offense. And with the way Precious is emerging, the way that, Fred, Trent, Siakam, Barnes, Precious lineup, I think kind of has a lot of potential there. I don't know. It's not even, maybe it's more of a than a bad, but I do feel like it's a bit of a clunky fit right now for OG within the Raptors offense to find the spots where he can kind of go and get his and have it be like an effective play for the offense. What do you think about that?
You're not wrong on that. And I don't have a particular bad, so I'll just tag on to this topic. You're not wrong, though. I've seen that a lot lately. People have seen that a lot lately where it's kind of like the my turn type of thing where,
sure.
Yeah, because you would love to OG to just, be a 3-and-D guy and, do some secondary scoring when, the ball's not going through a Fred or a Pascal or a Scottie. But there are those times where he decides it's his time to have one of those possessions where he tries to create something off the dribble and, it's still kind of clunky. He's had his opportunities to, see what he can do as a primary scoring option when guys have been hurt, especially last year when Siakam started the season, recovering from surgery. And that kind of had mixed results. But, currently as we are right now, he's still a guy that struggles to, basically dribble and get clean shots off. It's his stuff is still robotic, and he has a high tendency to just barrel into people and draw offensive fouls. So it is kind of a weird fit in terms of how to incorporate OG in the offense sometimes, and it's inconsistent because those games where he gets a lot of open looks from three, and he might cut a little bit, or he might have a post up or something. He could end up with like a 25 or 27 points, and then we have these games where it's kind of like you don't know how to put him in the offense, and he might end up with like 7 or 8 or something like that. So he's one of the guys where it's just you don't know if you're looking for a specific amount of points or anything like that. You don't really know what you're going to get from OG any given day, depending on just the circumstances, how teams are guarding and stuff like that. And that probably adds to his reported frustration of wanting to do more in the offense. I don't know how they remedy that. And yeah, it's just, on one hand, it's like, yeah, OG could probably do more in the offense. On the other hand, it's like
he's not as good at it as others.
Exactly.
He's just not. He's just not.
The skill set isn't there, and a lot of times it feels like it feels like a bad possession when he's just trying to create something isolation wise, and it's not even like a fact where, okay, if he's bogged up and he tries to do something and he's bogged up, he's gonna find the right guy, because he's also not one of the better passers on the team. So a lot of times that just feels like a my turn wasted possession if it's not someone else giving him a clean look and him being the finisher, as opposed to him trying to initiate offense. It is weird.
Yeah, and look, this could be something that's solved if Gary Trent Jr. is traded too, right? And OG kind of assumes the nominal 2-guard role on the team. He'll probably get a little bit more opportunity to go and cook. That said, Gary's probably a guy you would rather have go cook, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what his shot creation as a 2-guard would kind of worry me. And then we would get those kind of cringeworthy offensive possessions. That's my thing.
Yeah, well, that's okay because you have shooting center Precious Achiuwa to go and to be the Gary Trent Jr. Precious, I don't even know what to think of Precious, man. He's a future basketball player if I've ever seen one. Yeah, and look, it should be clear. OG was good last night. 11, 3, 2, 2, and 1. 3 of 6 from deep. Plus 24, best on the team. He had a couple moments, steps in, hits a mid-range jumper. That's nice to see. It's just bigger picture questions, which all of these games are informing. I do think that's something to kind of keep in mind here. I do think most times talented teams figure things out, but it might just be that, it seems like he's not Rudy Gay, but I do think moving on from OG could have a Rudy Gay-like effect in that it balances out the roster while also just kind of defining the roles of everybody a little bit clearer. And, maybe, again, could be really bad idea. Like, it really could. But also, he may be at the absolute peak of his value right now. And maybe that's the time to strike while the iron's hot. I don't know. I don't think this is the last time we'll be talking about the OG question before the deadline. That's for sure. Let's get to the whom quickly. Mine is very quick. Precious Achiuwa's throwing passes on the run now, like getting the ball, driving, and then making heads-up passes to the corner. That's a problem for everybody else if that's a thing. I don't know if it is a thing that's going to sustain, but he's looking a little more comfortable, a little less panicked and rushed when he gets into those sort of 10, 12-foot areas. And boy, oh boy, I could not be more thrilled about Precious Achiuwa right now, man. That's my is him just throwing heads-up passes on the run. What's yours?
Mine is Joe Wieskamp's 10-day. I think it should be expiring real soon. So I think he only play in the one game in Minnesota where
I think he played in 2, but he had the one game in Minnesota where he
cemented
himself among the Nigel Hayeses of the world with extremely good per game numbers for the Raptors in their annals.
Yeah. So yeah, that one game really stood out. Made every 3 he took and stuff like that. And the Raptors are going to re-sign him, right?
As Blake Murphy noted, it makes more sense to do it again after the deadline, just roster size-wise and length of contract and all that. So, it was a bummer. They brought him in at the scores table to close the game last night.
Yeah.
And then the buzzer ran out. Yeah.
He looked kind of dejected there and he wasn't able to get into the game. But yeah.
It's okay. He saved his per game numbers as a Raptor. It's good.
I would have loved to see him get a few more shots. That's kind of like what you want to do for 10-day, and obviously every game. Even Alvin Williams was talking about how he wanted to see him in the game. But a lot of fans have wanted to see him, get more opportunities, especially how the Raptors traditionally struggle shooting from three. But yeah, that was my you kind of answered it a little bit for me, but I was just wondering what the Raptors were going to do with him in his 10-day, because I'm pretty sure his 10-day runs out tomorrow.
Yeah, I could see him coming back, after the deadline for sure, and we'll see how it goes there. But yeah, nice little run from Joe Wieskamp, and boy, having some shooting on the roster, that was cool for a hot second, wasn't it? We're going to round it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow to take a look at the Warriors game and probably get, a little bit more big picture about where things sit just less than 2 weeks now. 2 weeks as of today from the NBA trade deadline. There's lots of big picture questions to sort through with these Raptors, and that's, I think, what's made this season really interesting. Maybe disappointing, definitely disappointing, but a lot of really interesting and sort of big picture puzzle pieces to fit together and sort through. So we'll do that tomorrow. Jamar, thank you so much for hanging, man. It's always a pleasure. And anything you'd like to promote for the good people out there?
Yeah, my Twitter, as always, Jamar, JAMARBH. There's a link there to my Raptors Republic work. It's kind of a light week this week, but I am doing a preview on the Warriors game. Not even the Warriors game. What am I talking about? I'm doing a preview on the Blazers game after the Warriors game. I did a Kings preview yesterday, but that passed. And who knows? The next time I'm back, will we have the same team?
That's a very good question. You'll be here on the morning of the deadline.
Exactly. We could be talking about something completely different.
Yeah, really excited to be talking about new Toronto Raptor Dyson Daniels or whatever the hell. That'll be fun. We will see you in a couple weeks, man. Good luck to your Bengals, and we will round it there. You can find me on Twitter at Woodley Sean. Follow, subscribe to, rate, review, all that good stuff. It's always appreciated when you support the show. And have yourself a wonderful rest of your day. Go make your second listen of the day Locked On Leafs. Like I said, really good podcast, covering a really good team. In the meantime, though, see you later. Bye-bye.